Ancient Egypt gave us towering pyramids, golden treasures, and legendary rulers. But what about those who vanished from history without explanation? Today, we uncover the forgotten queens and mysterious pharaohs whose names were erased, whose tombs disappeared, and whose legacies remain buried beneath the sands of time. The question is, why did history forget them? And what secrets are waiting to be discovered? Welcome to a journey through the silent corridors of history. Egypt's golden age is full of celebrated names like Tutankhamun and Cleopatra, but hidden behind the walls of time lie queens and pharaohs whose stories ended abruptly or were deliberately erased. In this video, we'll dive into the shadows of Egypt's past to uncover the mysteries of these rulers who seemingly vanished into thin air. Imagine the golden sands of Egypt stretching endlessly under the blazing sun, holding within them secrets of rulers who once commanded empires and shaped the destiny of one of the greatest civilizations on Earth. We know the names of queens like Cleopatra and Hatshepsut, women who defied expectations and left their mark on history. But what about those queens whose stories were silenced, their tombs missing, their names erased, their reigns fading into obscurity? Among the most mysterious of all is Queen Nefertiti, a woman whose beauty and power captivated the ancient world, yet whose final fate remains one of the greatest enigmas of archaeology. Nefertiti, often depicted with her iconic tall crown, was not just the queen but the co-ruler alongside Pharaoh Akhenaten during one of Egypt's most radical religious revolutions. Together, they abandoned the old gods and declared the sun disk, Aten, as the sole deity. It was a bold and dangerous move in a land where gods and traditions ruled every aspect of life. For a brief moment, Nefertiti stood at the very center of power, possibly even ruling as a pharaoh after her husband's death. But then history falls silent. Her name disappears from records, her images vanish from monuments, and her body, if it has ever been found, remains unconfirmed to this day. Archaeologists have searched tirelessly for Nefertiti's tomb, hoping to uncover clues about her mysterious end. Some believe she was buried in the Valley of the Kings in a secret chamber near Tutankhamun's tomb, hidden away to protect her legacy. Others argue she fell out of favor, possibly overthrown during political turmoil and deliberately erased from history, as enemies sought to destroy all traces of her existence. This idea is supported by the practice of damnatio memoria, the erasing of a person's name from monuments to ensure they were forgotten for eternity. In ancient Egypt, to have your name erased was to lose your afterlife, your immortality. Someone wanted Nefertiti gone, not just from power, but from memory itself. And Nefertiti was not alone in this mystery. Other queens, equally powerful yet now nearly invisible to history, shared a similar fate. Consider Queen Nefertiti, the young wife of Tutankhamun. After the boy king's sudden death, she was left in a dangerous political situation. A letter discovered centuries later suggests she may have even reached out to the king of the Hittites, Egypt's enemy, asking for a foreign prince to marry her and secure her throne. It was a desperate and shocking act for an Egyptian queen. But soon after, the letter goes silent. The foreign prince was murdered on his way to Egypt, and Nefertiti disappears from records altogether. No tomb, no mummy, no clear ending to her story. Did she die in a palace plot? Was she forced into marriage with a powerful court official who erased her past? The silence of history leaves only questions. Then there are queens like Kia, another wife of Akhenaten, whose name was chiseled off walls and replaced with others. Was she disgraced? Did she die in childbirth? Or was she the victim of political rivalries inside the royal palace? The fragments of statues and inscriptions that remain only hint at her presence, like whispers of a story half erased by time. What makes these lost queens so fascinating is not just their disappearance, but the sense that they once held incredible power in a world dominated by men. They were mothers of pharaohs, guardians of dynasties, and in some cases, rulers in their own right. Yet their stories were buried by rivals, rewritten by successors, or simply swallowed by the desert sands as centuries passed. Today, Egyptologists use advanced technologies, CT scans, DNA analysis, ground-penetrating radar to search for their tombs, to read faded inscriptions, to piece together clues that might finally reveal what happened to them. Each discovery, no matter how small, feels like a voice calling out from 3,000 years ago, refusing to be silenced forever. Some believe Nefertiti may still lie hidden behind a secret wall in Tutankhamun's tomb, her burial chamber waiting for the moment it will emerge into the light after millennia of darkness. Others suspect her remains might already have been found but not yet identified, lying among the many unclaimed mummies in Egyptian museums. As for Nesanao and Kia, new excavations in the Valley of the Kings continue to search for evidence, hoping the next turn of the archaeologist's spade will uncover a forgotten tomb or a single artifact bearing their names. The story of ancient Egypt often conjures up images of mighty pharaohs commanding armies, building monuments that touch the sky, and ruling over one of the greatest civilizations the world has ever known. But what if some of those rulers, once so powerful, were deliberately erased from memory? Their names chiseled off walls, their statues smashed, their legacies rewritten by those who followed. It wasn't time or decay that buried their stories. It was politics, betrayal, and revenge. Perhaps the most famous case is that of Pharaoh Akhenaten, the so-called heretic king. At first, his reign seemed destined for greatness. He built a dazzling new capital called Akhetaten, devoted himself to the worship of one god, the Aten, and turned the traditional religion of Egypt on its head. For centuries, Egypt had been a land of many gods, each with temples, priests, and power stretching across the kingdom. But Akhenaten was determined to change everything. He abandoned the old ways, closed temples, stripped priests of their influence, and ordered that all attention focus on the Aten alone. In doing so, he challenged not only religion but the political system that had kept Egypt united for generations. For a brief moment, Akhenaten and his queen Nefertiti ruled as visionaries, carving their faces into colossal statues, leaving behind art unlike anything Egypt had ever seen. But when Akhenaten died, his revolution crumbled. The old priests returned, the worship of the traditional gods was restored, and his successors wanted nothing to do with his memory. His city was abandoned, his monuments defaced, and his name erased from the king lists as if he had never existed. Imagine ruling one of the most powerful empires on earth only for future generations to act as though you never lived. It was as though Egypt itself wanted to forget this chapter of its history, to erase a king who had defied its traditions so completely, and Akhenaten was not the only one. Centuries later, a female pharaoh named Hatshepsut also faced a posthumous attack on her legacy. Hatshepsut had ruled as one of the most successful pharaohs in Egyptian history. She brought peace, wealth, and monumental architecture, including the breathtaking temple at Deir el-Bahari. Yet years after her death, someone, likely her stepson Thutmose III, ordered her statues smashed, her images chiseled away, her name removed from records. Historians believe this was an attempt to restore the traditional male line of kingship, to make it seem as if her reign had never interrupted the sequence of male rulers. For nearly 3,000 years, her story was hidden until modern archaeologists pieced it back together from the fragments left behind. Then there are the lesser-known pharaohs, rulers whose names barely survived the centuries because their successors wanted to claim credit for their achievements. Take Smenkhkare, a mysterious king who may have ruled briefly after Akhenaten but before Tutankhamun. Little is known about him, so little, in fact, that some scholars debate whether he was even a separate person or perhaps Nefertiti ruling under another name. The confusion stems from how quickly his traces vanished. Temples that might have carried his name were rededicated to others. Inscriptions were altered. The few artifacts that mention him raise more questions than answers. Was he a rival eliminated by Tutankhamun's supporters? A bridge between two reigns deliberately wiped out to make the new king's rule look more legitimate? The silence of history keeps his identity locked away. Even the powerful Ramesses dynasty played this dangerous game of erasure. Some kings claim the monuments and victories of earlier rulers as their own, chiseling off old names to replace them with their own cartouches. To modern archaeologists, this rewriting of history makes it difficult to know who truly built what, or who won which battle. It was as if each pharaoh understood that memory itself was a weapon. To be remembered was to live forever. To be erased was to die a second death, one from which there was no return. Today, as we uncover broken statues, faded hieroglyphs, and half-erased cartouches on temple walls, we realize that ancient Egypt's history was not a simple, unbroken story. It was a battlefield of memory, where kings and queens fought not only for power in life, but for their place in eternity. Archaeologists and historians now piece together the fragments of names once thought lost forever, using everything from 3D imaging to satellite scans to recover what centuries of politics tried to destroy. Each discovery, a faint inscription, a damaged statue, a forgotten tomb, feels like another pharaoh refusing to remain silent. Another voice from the past demanding to be heard again. When we look at the vanished queens and forgotten pharaohs of ancient Egypt, one question keeps echoing through time. Why did they disappear? Was it chance, was it choice, or was it something much darker? History leaves us fragments, clues scratched on temple walls, broken statues, half-buried tombs. And from these pieces, scholars have built theories that twist and turn like the corridors of the pyramids themselves. Each possibility feels like a story waiting to be told, a story that might explain why so many rulers vanished, as though history itself had conspired against them. One theory begins with the most ruthless force of all: politics. In the world of ancient Egypt, the throne was not always a secure place. Behind the glittering temples and golden palaces, power struggles simmered, waiting for the right moment to erupt. A queen or pharaoh who gained too much influence could easily become a threat to someone else's ambition. Alliances shifted like desert winds, and rivals plotted in silence. When a ruler died suddenly, questions always followed. Was it illness, an accident, or a carefully planned assassination? And if a ruler's enemies truly wanted them gone, they didn't stop with death. They attacked their memory. They erased names from monuments, claimed victories as their own, and ensured that future generations would never speak the victim's name again. To the ancient Egyptians, this was the ultimate punishment. Without your name, you had no afterlife, no eternity. You were erased not only from history, but from existence itself. Then there is the theory of religious conflict, a storm that swept across Egypt more than once. Take Akhenaten's reign, for example. By abandoning the traditional gods and demanding worship of one deity, he created enemies among the powerful priests whose temples had dominated Egypt for centuries. These priests were not simply spiritual figures. They controlled immense wealth, land, and political power. When Akhenaten died, the backlash was swift and brutal. His temples were dismantled, his monuments defaced, his name scratched away as though the priests wanted to wipe out every trace of his heresy. Was this religious revenge, a punishment for daring to defy centuries of tradition? It seems likely. But it also raises the question: how many other rulers may have suffered the same fate, erased by those who saw them as threats to the sacred order? Another theory whispers of foreign invaders and the chaos they brought with them. Egypt, for all its glory, was not invincible. Enemies like the Hittites and later the Sea Peoples threatened its borders, sometimes breaking through to sack cities and burn temples. In times of crisis, records were lost, monuments destroyed, and rulers' names vanished simply because there was no one left to preserve them. Imagine a queen ruling on the eve of an invasion, her monuments toppled, her legacy drowned in the fires of war. Her story might disappear not because of betrayal or conspiracy, but because history itself was shattered around her. And yet, there is another possibility, one far more personal and human. Some rulers may have vanished because they chose to, or because fate struck suddenly. Plague swept through ancient Egypt more than once, carried along the trade routes that brought wealth to the kingdom. Could a sudden epidemic have claimed a queen or pharaoh, leaving little time to prepare a grand tomb or carve their name in history? Or perhaps a ruler died unexpectedly before plans for their burial were completed, leaving them to be buried hastily in a tomb meant for someone else. If that tomb was later looted or destroyed, all trace of them could vanish in the shifting sands of time. Still, one of the most debated theories revolves around deliberate erasure for political gain. Successors sometimes wanted to claim the achievements of those who came before them. If a pharaoh built a temple or won a great battle, the next ruler might chisel away the old name and carve their own, rewriting history to make themselves the hero. Over centuries, this rewriting blurs the line between fact and propaganda. How many victories we attribute to famous pharaohs might actually belong to someone history tried to forget? How many monuments stand in honor of the wrong names? Modern archaeology keeps uncovering evidence that forces us to rethink these stories. A faint inscription here, a hidden tomb chamber there, a mummy with no name but royal DNA, it all suggests that behind each disappearance lies a tangled web of motives. Some rulers may have been victims of political assassinations, others casualties of religious revenge. Some were likely lost to time and war, while others were deliberately erased to elevate those who followed. And perhaps in some cases, their secrets remain buried because they chose to keep them that way, leaving future generations to search for answers in the silence of the desert. Today, the deserts of Egypt may look silent, but beneath the sand lies a kingdom of secrets waiting to be uncovered. For centuries, the stories of vanished queens and forgotten pharaohs remained locked in the darkness of tombs, temples, and buried cities. But in recent decades, modern technology has become the new key to unlocking the mysteries that puzzled historians for generations. Each discovery feels like a whisper from the past, a clue left behind by rulers who refused to stay silent forever. Take the story of the Valley of the Kings. For hundreds of years, explorers scoured this royal burial ground, unearthing dazzling treasures and mummies of legendary pharaohs. Yet even here, mysteries linger. The tomb of Tutankhamun, discovered in 1922 by Howard Carter, was one of the most spectacular finds in history. Gold, chariots, jewelry, the treasures of a boy king who died young yet was buried like a god. But in recent years, experts began to suspect there might be more hidden behind the tomb's walls. Scans revealed strange anomalies, voids that could be sealed chambers. Some archaeologists believe one of those chambers might hold the long-lost tomb of Queen Nefertiti herself. If true, it would be one of the most significant discoveries of the century, rewriting what we know about Egypt's most famous queen. Yet, for now, the mystery remains sealed, leaving the world waiting for answers. Technology has also breathed life into long-forgotten mummies, allowing scientists to peer into the past in ways once thought impossible. CT scans and DNA analysis have identified royal families, solved ancient murder mysteries, and revealed illnesses that plagued the pharaohs. The so-called screaming mummy, with its mouth frozen open in eternal agony, baffled historians for years. Was it a curse, a sign of poison? Modern science revealed it may have been a prince involved in a conspiracy against his father, Pharaoh Ramesses III, executed and denied a proper burial. This single discovery showed how political rivalries could shape not only a ruler's life but also their death, and how new technology can resurrect voices silenced for millennia. Ground-penetrating radar and satellite imaging have also transformed the search for lost tombs and cities. Entire settlements have been found buried under desert sands without turning a single shovel. In 2017, archaeologists using radar technology discovered what appeared to be a hidden necropolis near Luxor, filled with tombs and treasures from Egypt's golden age. Every new scan offers the possibility of revealing another vanished ruler, another forgotten queen whose story has waited thousands of years to be told. But with each discovery comes new mysteries. In 2018, researchers opened a massive black granite sarcophagus in Alexandria, hoping to find the remains of a famous ruler. Instead, they uncovered 3 skeletons floating in dark red, liquid-likely ancient sewage water, but no inscriptions. No names, nothing to reveal who they were. Some speculated they might be soldiers, others thought they could be members of a royal family. But the truth remains hidden, another puzzle piece with no clear place in the larger picture of Egypt's history. Even the mummies we thought we understood continue to surprise us. The body of Pharaoh Erased, for instance, showed horrific head wounds, leading experts to believe he died in battle. But modern scans revealed a darker story. He had likely been captured. Executed by enemy soldiers, his body returned to his people as a final insult. Each detail pulled from his remains paints a picture, not just of how he lived, but how he died, caught in the violent struggles that shaped Egypt's destiny. And what about the queens? Modern archaeology has identified some royal women once lost to time. The tomb of Queen Hatshepsut, long hidden, was finally identified when a tooth from a box bearing her name matched a mummy found in the Valley of the Kings. Yet others, like Nisenau, Tutankhamun's widow, remain elusive. In 2017, archaeologists thought they had found her tomb, but further exploration revealed only empty chambers. Still, the search continues, with experts convinced her story lies somewhere beneath the sands, waiting for the right moment to emerge. Perhaps the greatest mystery of all is how much we still don't know. For every tomb discovered, countless others remain buried. For every name identified, others lie erased on broken monuments. Modern tools may give us scans, DNA, and radar images, but they cannot yet tell us why some rulers were celebrated while others were condemned to be forgotten. The answers may be waiting in a sealed chamber, in a fragment of inscription on a temple wall, or in the DNA of a nameless mummy lying in a museum drawer. Every year, new discoveries push the story forward, each one a reminder that the sands of Egypt have not yet given up all their secrets across 4,000 years. The sands of Egypt have hidden as much as they have revealed. Queens who once ruled as goddesses, pharaohs who commanded empires, rulers whose names echoed through temples and palaces, all reduced to fragments of stone, half-buried tombs and broken inscriptions, yet even in silence their stories refuse to die. Every tomb discovered, every inscription decoded, every mummy scanned pulls back the curtain of time just a little more. We begin to see not only the power and glory of ancient Egypt, but also the rivalries, betrayals and struggles for immortality that shaped its destiny. Some rulers were celebrated for centuries, their monuments standing tall against the winds of time. Others were deliberately erased, condemned by successors who wanted their names forgotten. And yet here we are, thousands of years later, speaking their names once again: Nefertiti, Akhenaten, Nisenau, Hatshepsut, kings and queens, who vanished into the shadows of history, now step back into the light through the work of archaeologists, scientists, and explorers who refuse to let the past stay buried. Perhaps one day the hidden tombs will be opened, the missing names restored, and the mysteries finally solved. Until then, the vanished queens and forgotten pharaohs of Egypt remain both a story of loss and a promise that the desert still holds secrets, capable of changing everything we thought we knew about the ancient world.